Bill Strickler, and this is our first version of Alternative States, where we find the latest information on the internet, and we have our internet investigator, Quante. So tell us a little bit of what you're finding out there on the internet, the real deal on China and the coronavirus.
I think I'd have to start with the fact that I do agree with our president, Donald J. Trump, that this virus did in fact come from China. There is some information, conflicting information, that it started in 2002 in Yunnan, China, but most of the information that's come out through the World Health Organization and the CDC say it came from Wuhan, China.
So what are you finding to be the truth? How long has this been going on? Do you find a lot of misinformation being put out there, especially by the World Health Organization?
Yes, there's definitely a lot of conflicting information that we're receiving. Some of the conflicting information is coming from the World Health Organization. Their estimates on how many people would die from this was given on March 3rd of this year, and they estimated about 3.4% over the natural flu virus, 1% of mortality rate. That was the first thing I noticed that was kind of conflicting with some other information we were getting from the media and other sources.
So what do you think the guy that was in charge of the WHO, which I originally thought was the band with Daltrey, that they were involved in it, but it was a World Health Organization. So why would they be putting out false information?
From what I can understand and some of the quotes I have read, it looks like that was the initial report came directly from the director at the World Health Organization. I believe he is from Ethiopia, and his statement was on March 3rd, while many people have built up immunity to seasonal flu strains, COVID-19 is a new virus which no one has immunity. That means more people are susceptible to this virus, and some will suffer severe diseases. I think the main thing that happened that seemed like a conflict was they did not include individuals who possibly could have had the coronavirus, say, in January or February. They were taking their numbers from the most recent times and from China.
And all the internet information you're finding they'll be able to, the viewers will be able to find it, because at the end of the show, they'll be edited in what articles you're finding this. So you're actually finding the information online.
Absolutely. This article's out of the Gateway Pundit, and I believe it was from yesterday.
We will be right back in just a second. We're back. So let's talk about the what's going on and how China is actually influencing who. So what did you find out?
What I found out is that the Chinese did not include individuals that possibly had the coronavirus more recently. And also, Dr. Tedros at the World Health Organization announced that the World Health Organization is indebted and influenced by the Chinese money and investments in their country. And he's reported that they are required to say pretty much what China tells them to say.
Well, they're doing a lot of building in Africa right now. It's almost like any construction you see in Africa is being financed by the Chinese. They do the construction. They loan the money to these different African nations. and then they owe China eventually. Eventually, they got to pay a price.
Exactly. And I think Ethiopia is known to be quite a poverty-stricken country. So the fact that China is making such heavy investments there, I mean, that could cause for some inaccuracies in their reporting on this virus.
Well, Quante, you know that I'm an engineer and I deal with facts, but then again, you have a certain way of connecting dots where I don't. You see things that I don't necessarily agree with or even have thought about. So, how did you get into this whole investigative internet looking for the alternative answers?
Part of it was I spent 5 years in Norway and I had one child there, and I got to experience their healthcare system and also got to utilize a lot of natural treatments for healthcare. So I started to learn a lot about that. And then when I returned to the United States and went back into medical sales, I saw a lot of things that were unexplained happening, like doctors' practices being taken over and other very nefarious things were taking place.
So you basically wanted to find out what was going on behind the scenes.
Correct.
And that's what's gotten you into being so immersed into finding out the real deal. And sometimes you call me up and say, this is a coded speech. There's actually code words, and not necessarily with the president or with people that he's surrounded, but also celebrities.
Correct. Correct. There's a lot of coded language being used. It's always been used. And I think I've heard somebody say once, if you're not looking at symbolisms and hand signs when somebody's communicating, you're not getting half of the conversation.
So is there one that might be a little bit older and not necessarily be involved with anybody in today's world that you've seen in the past that we can look at and say, wow, she sees something there that we really didn't see before?
Well, I think one of the main one that everybody's looking at today is Madonna. As we see her health deteriorating rapidly, and there's no real explanation for it. She's putting out these coded videos with these red rose petals that supposedly connect to child trafficking and possibly other things like something called adrenochrome.
So you've seen that information on the internet. There wouldn't really be any way of verifying that, but that's just something that's out there, and people should keep their eyes open. Is that what you're saying?
I work with a team of 50 researchers online that all have different expertise. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are doctors, some of them are military members, and we all put in our information and we run it through like a sifter.
So in our next section, let's talk about what happened with a professor at Harvard and how he's connected to Wuhan and the Chinese,
Yes.
and what happened when the Defense Department, and you've taken your information right off the website, 22 or 23 vials that were going to be smuggled over to China. But we'll
Correct.
talk about when we come back. This is Bill Strickler with Shantae, our internet investigator. I'm back. This is Bill with Quinte. And so what's going on with this event that happened at the end of last year? Coincidentally, or is this a connection since these Chinese biological vials maybe? I mean, what? Let us know.
Okay, so according to the Department of Justice's website, and it's dated Tuesday, January 28th, 2020, in case you want to look it up. A Harvard University professor who was the chair of Harvard Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department and two Chinese nationals have been arrested in aiding the People's Republic of China. Now, this Dr. Charles Lieber, who's 60 years old, who chaired the Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology, was arrested making false and fraudulent statements. This man had received more than $15 million of grant funding from our National Institute of Health and our Department of Defense.
So how are you connecting the dots on this?
So this indictment indicts him for conflicts, and Harvard is not included in this indictment. I want to be clear about that. He worked for Harvard, but they are not included. He received money from our Department of Defense, and he was receiving anywhere I'm reading between $100,000 and $150,000 a month for a brick and mortar Chinese lab in Wuhan, China.
Wuhan. Mm-hmm. That sure sounds like a familiar city, doesn't it?
Exactly, and he was also the strategic scientist for Wuhan University of Technology.
And it was from 2002 until
2011.
11 until last few years. And who's
Correct.
to say it isn't actually, he still isn't involved with them. But one thing that's interesting, he's not the only one. So there was a conspiracy on this because there's more than one person that's involved with the Department of Justice case.
Correct.
They actually found an associate of his was the one who was trying to smuggle the vials at Logan Airport.
Zeho Sang, a 30-year-old Chinese nationalist, was arrested on December 10th, 2019, at Boston's Logan International Airport and charged with criminal complaint of attempting to smuggle 21 vials of biological research to China. One more thing on Professor Lieber I'd like to say is that he was considered the strategic scientist at this Wuhan University, and he was also contracted as a participant in Chinese 1,000 Talents Plan from about 2012 to 2017.
So it seems kind of strange to me that they're trying to sneak something out of the country to China. Could that have been maybe a something that has to do with the virus, a vaccine maybe, or some kind of cure? I mean, biological chemists, that seems like it's involved with virus.
Something serious, something definitely serious and nefarious. What I find interesting with this 1,000 Talents Plan is this is actually, from my research, a plan to infiltrate spies into medical companies in the United States. And this went on from 2012 until 2017.
So this guy was trying to get other Chinese or get people that worked in these other universities and medical companies to be involved with him in some way for the Chinese government?
Yes.
Is that how your interpretation?
Absolutely. He was actually bringing them in, and he was contracted for $50,000 a month and up to $100,000 for living expenses, approximately $158,000. And he also had a lab in Wuhan, China, as well as at Harvard. So he was running their talent here and running our information there. That's how I interpret it.
So there was something, he had a lab there, and this whole coronavirus could have been set up for years.
Absolutely. I think we've had some predictive programming with The Simpsons and other type, predictive programming that's been released on the Wuhan virus.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about this in just a minute. Welcome back. This is Bill Strickler, and we're here with Quinte to talk about a little bit more of the connection between these people up in Boston. So what is the Department of Justice's report showing you about some of the people that the professor was involved with?
Right. So a lot of the media, I just want to say, is covering this up. So if you Google any of this information, you're going to come up with a lot of cover-ups about they were indicted for lying.
In your opinion?
Well, they were indicted for lying.
Okay.
This is correct. They were. But what they lied about is that they were, for example, Yang Ying Yi, according to an indictment, is a lieutenant in the People's Liberation Army, PLA, the armed forces of the People's Republic of China, and a member of the Chinese Communist Party. So, yes, she did lie and identify herself as a student as versus a Chinese military agent.
So we had somebody that was in the Chinese military hanging out with the main professor that also has a lab in Wuhan.
Correct.
I mean, it just seems a little strange, but I never connected the dots like you're connecting the dots. There's more to the story, and who knows how involved these people are with the virus that we're dealing with now.
Correct.
I still can't get over why would they be shipping out vials to China unless it was maybe the precursor of the virus and it was actually created here and this is a different strain, or maybe it's a cure for it or a vaccine.
Or, I mean, I'm going to bring this up because the professor was specializing in nanoparticles, which is a foreign type application or, let's say, material that could be used injected inside some of people's bodies. Now, there's a lot of conspiracies out there that vaccines inject foreign items into people's bodies. And so, could it be possible that they were conspiring to create a virus to get people to take vaccines that, were not the best for us? What I can tell you, according to the DOJ report, is Yi access. This is a Chinese person that this professor was with. Yi accessed U.S. military websites, researched U.S. military projects, and compiled information for the PLA and 2 U.S. scientists with expertise in robotics and computer science, and had a WeChat conversation between a PLA officer on risk assessment models to decipher this data for military applications.
Well, it just seems like our military surveillance or government agencies are not really doing a great job when we get a report like this, but eventually they figured it out, and the Department of Justice did file a suit on them or arrest them.
And I have questions on how many other scientists, under the word scientists, how many other Chinese militants did this particular professor, through those 8 years he's worked in this particular group, 1,000 Talents Plan from 2012 to 2017, how many of them are actually scientists and not military agents for China?
Well, I guess you'll keep us updated if there's anything else that comes out on this.
What we do have is we have the other partner. In August 2018, he entered on a J1 visa and conducted cancer cell research at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston from September 4th, 2018 till December 9th, 2019. And Zhang stole 21 vials of biological research and attempted to smuggle them out of the U.S. to China. And they discovered them hidden in one of his socks in a bag, not properly packaged.
Or disclosed.
And then he was arrested and charged with smuggling goods.
So somebody must have tipped off the authorities that this guy was doing it. So maybe there's an insider that maybe they were squeezed and they would rather tell the government what's going on instead of going to jail for 30, 40 years.
Right, and the last thing I'd like to bring your attention to and to the viewers is the most significant important lawsuit of the 21st century is Google, Facebook, and Neuralink sued for the weaponization of AI tech transfer, complicity to genocide in China and endangering humanity with the misuse of AI. That is an actual, and I think we'll link to that at the bottom of the video, that you can take a look at this lawsuit that they're involved in, all the social media
Who was that
companies.
reported by?
This is on. It's an official legal document, and it's definitely on the web, and I can get you a link for that.
Okay, so the lawsuit is about these companies giving information to the Chinese against specific people, dissidents maybe, that that the Chinese would want to have eliminated. You know, it just seems kind of strange to me that the doctor that discovered this or brought the attention to the virus, he ends up dead from the virus that he was investigating.
Exactly. There's that too in China. Exactly.
So if you know something, it's almost like you're better off not saying anything.
Exactly.
And then China kicked out of the country the reporters from Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. It's almost like, well, we're not going to let you know anything because there's more to this story than we want people to know.
Correct. I would agree with that.
Okay, well, thanks for watching our first show. If you have any questions, just let us know. And got to thank TV38 for supporting us on this. And until our next show.
Adios.